Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'd like to begin with asking Pastor Jerry Dunn of the Oak Street Baptist Church to lead us in an invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Supervisor Gary Watson.
Let's pray. Father, as we come to you this morning, we want to thank you for a beautiful day that you've given to us. We thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to be a part of what is happening in our county. And Father, we do pray your blessing upon Mr. Moss, our supervisor, and for other members of the committee. And Father, we pray that you would lead and guide them by your Spirit as you can. And Father, as they make decisions that affect all of us. Father, we do want to think this morning about the police officers in Dallas and Baton Rouge, and Father, their families, and ask that you comfort and strengthen them at this time of sorrow and loss in their life. And Father, we ask that you protect and preserve our own officers and sheriffs and firefighters who work diligently to protect us. And Father, thank you for the privilege of living in the city and in a county that is very safe for us. And Father, we ask that you just continue to preserve and protect us. Father, lead and guide us by your Spirit today, for it's in Christ's name we ask it. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. You follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to point out that Supervisor Hildy Angus is in Cleveland this morning, so she will not be attending either by phone or in person. Okay, the Board of Supervisors may, by motion, recess into executive session to receive legal advice from the board's attorneys on any item contained in the agenda pursuant to ARS 38-431-03 A3 and 4. But this morning, I'd like to entertain a motion and action to call for an executive session to be held August the 1st, 2016 at 9 a.m. That'll be for discussion and consultation with legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431-03 A3 and 4 to discuss items noticed in the agenda with an asterisk.
So moved.
Second the motion.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, official business to come before the board this morning. Discussion of pending or contemplated litigation claims or demands. Do we have anything, Attorney Ekstrom?
Nothing additional, Madam Chairman.
Okay, do we have any committee or legislative reports from the supervisors? Do you have anything, Supervisor Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will submit some paperwork to the clerk. We had a Desert Landscape Conservation Cooperative Steering Committee meeting. The emphasis was on the Landscape Conservation Planning and Design Program. It was an important meeting, and the substance was important. I still don't know how the LCPD will integrate and reconcile with other plans, but the process is moving forward. I've come to believe that regardless of who wins the election in December, the LCCs are firmly enough involved with the Department of Interior, they will not go away after November. And I'll submit that backup so in case anybody cares to read it. Also, I went to Washington, D.C. I got there on Wednesday. Started out with a 7:30 meeting at the Capitol Hill Club with Congressman Gosar. We're preparing for the afternoon hearing on renewable resources legislation with him and Tom Van Flein, his chief of staff, Bob Widener, who works for us part-time. We discussed future opportunities for Mojave County and how we can work together with the congressman. At 11 o'clock, we met with NACO with Chris Markland. He's the gentleman in charge of public lands. Paul Beto, he's the executive director, and Widener again, and reviewed testimony to make sure it stayed within our guidelines. And we also went over Mojave County issues. 2 to 4, I went to the Hill for the Renewable Energy Bill, 2663. Attending that were the chairman, Doug Lamborn from Colorado, Paul Gosar from Arizona, Gene Thompson, Pennsylvania, and Jody Heiss, Georgia, Dan Bridget, Michigan. Those were all Republicans. Ranking Member Lowenthal from California and Jared Polis, Colorado. They're both Ds. I went there as representing the National Association of Counties, Quad State Local Government, Arizona, Utah, Economic Development Coalition. I can give you the copy of the speech if you'd like. I testified on that, and it was a good question and answer. One of the questions they did come up with, the bill is basically to say that any renewable energy will be treated like geothermal. So if they put solar or wind, the county would get 25%. And then they asked me, they said, well, because there was some push to say, well, let's just do it without splitting with the counties, and they said we would not be interested in any kind of a pushing it forward. Just to give you an example, we have one project here in Mojave County that gives us back $116.23 an acre on property tax, according to our assessor. They gave me those figures, and we're only getting 54 cents an acre on PILT, so that's a big difference, so keep it up. See, then the next day we went out at 8:30 met with the Natural Resource Committee Chairman, Grijalva, and went over PILT and SRS with the counties and shared Mojave County's support for renewable energy. Grijalva offered to come up to Mojave County if I wanted to do a debate with him over national monument designation. 9:30 I had a meeting with Representative Paul Cook. He's Republican, California. Tim McIntyre discussed involving mutual interests of Mojave and San Bernardino counties across the Colorado River, especially on RS 2477, and a host of other public land issues. At 10:30, met with Rob Bishop. He's a Republican from Utah, and explained a position on renewable energy bills as well, and Bishop's other priorities in Congress: active national forest management, PILT, SRS, and RS 2477. 10:45, met with Eric Rhodes, Spencer Kimball. Those are Bishop's top public land committee staffers, to discuss interior appropriations amendment, including PILT and Lake Havasu, the closure of the lake. At 11 o'clock, met with Bishop's new chief of staff and legislative assistants, just to introduce myself and go over Mojave County and Lake Havasu, along with public lands and mining issues. 11:15, and we met with Chris Stewart. He's Republican from Utah, to discuss Lake Havasu amendment on behalf of Representative Gosar, also RS 2477. Stewart indicated he had just beaten back an amendment that Mr. Grijalva had put in, which would have hurt Mojave County. Then at 11:30, I met with Congressman Trent Franks. Went over everything same thing we had before. At 1:30, we had a meeting with Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee staff, Kip Knudsen, Heidi Hansen, both of whom work on the committee chair, Lisa Murkowski, she's from Alaska, Chuck Brack, Senator Flake, and we discussed the mine claim holding fee waiver. The problem we're getting is up on the mining, when they've taken those mines out for 20 years, they still have to pay their fees. So we're trying to get a waiver. That's been done in the past because it's awful erroneous. They're paying over $100,000 a year for something that maybe they'll never get to use. And I went over the fact that there's $29 billion in economic benefit to northern Arizona, southern Utah with the uranium deposits. 2:30, then I met with Senator Flake, Chandler Morris as Chief of Staff, Podak, Chuck Podak, who does his public lands, discussed the House Renewable Energy Bill, uranium, the monument, other Mojave County and the Lake Havasu issues. At 3:30, I met with Senator McCain, his staffers, Nick Matea, and discussed uranium mining, the monument, and basically how environmentalists have gone too far to try to be pure. 5 o'clock, then I had a meeting with Representative Gallegos to go over everything, similar stuff. Then I went at a dinner meeting with Chandler Morris again to go over how Senator Flake can help us. And then the next morning at 7:10, I met with Matt Salmon to go over the same thing, the state and county issues. That's all I have.
Well, thank you very much. You were a busy man in Washington, D.C. Thank you. Supervisor Watson.
Nothing this morning, thank you.
And Supervisor Moss.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. And I have nothing. So we'll go on to the county administrator's report. Do you have anything?
Madam Chairman, for my county administrator's report, I'd like to invite Patty Mead down to talk about her mosquito public outreach, a portion of her mosquito public outreach program.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Patty.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and members of the board. I am pleased to present to you this morning our Fight the Bite bag. Included in it are a color book for kids, several educational pamphlets for adults, 2 dunk tablets for larviciding, and some DEET wipes for mosquito repellent. These, because of the complaints we've had in Fort Mojave and Bullhead City, These will primarily be available at the board offices in Fort Mojave and Bullhead City, the health department there in the environmental health office, the sheriff's substation in the sheriff's office, the library in Bullhead City and Fort Mojave, the fire station and the senior center Golden Shores, and also the Bullhead City Senior Center. If Supervisor Johnson wants a few, we are happy to provide those, but we've had only 2 complaints in Lake Havasu and none since then. So I would like to recognize the volunteers that helped. This was a much bigger effort than we ever anticipated. It took 6 full days of volunteers, 6 volunteers all morning and all afternoon doing this. So the environmental health employees that helped were Rhea Howard, Kelly Pompa, Kyle Walsh, Evelyn Jones. The volunteers for the health department were Paul Pitt, Lois Landis, Joanne Marquez, Doris Vinson, Stephanie Merritt, Bob Maniak, John Bowen, Dominique Merritt, Terry Gray, Larry Gray, and Gabby LeBou, and our Coyote volunteers, which graciously helped us out when we ran out of people, were Eddie Diaz, Jonathan Smith, Richard Marquette, Madison Numerado, Kayla Bell, Alana Barrett, Sarah Barrett. And then when we ran out of all of those, I spoke with Linda Kellen. She helped us get some volunteers from other county departments, which we were hugely grateful for. Arlene Clark, Hannah Blake, Regina Musamisi, Sarah Bollender, and Curtis Shelton. So I really want to recognize their efforts. It was a lot of work, taking dunk tablets out of huge boxes and bagging them to put in the bags and get everything together. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Great effort by a lot of different people and employees and volunteers.
And Madam Chairman, I'd like to add that in addition to this public outreach, the health department, through their environmental health division, is still fogging in accordance with the CDC guidelines, and our aerial spraying is on hold currently.
Okay, thank you. Okay, going on to the next item. I'll entertain a motion to approve the June 6, 2016 Board of Supervisors regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second the motion.
Motion a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the next item is the call to the public. We have no one signed up to speak, so we'll close the call to the public and go on to presentations. We have an award of excellence recognizing Mojave County Workers' Compensation Program by Bill Hardy, Executive Director, Arizona County's Insurance Pool.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the
Morning, Mr.
opportunity
Hardy.
to speak for this august body. Listen, the Arizona County's insurance pool is made up of 12 of the 15 counties. Over the years, the risk management staff in Mojave County have worked hard to develop a top-notch safety program. Through their efforts, Mojave County has the lowest claims cost per injury of all 12 counties and the highest rate of returning employees to modified duty of all the members of the pool. Mojave County is frequently used as an example of a quality program when we speak to the other counties. Your experience modifier consistently is below the average of other municipal governments of a like number of employees like. What this means is you've actually saved in excess of $1 million because of that experience modifier. You are paying less than the normal average government with this.
Great.
On behalf of the Arizona County's insurance pool, I would like to present the county with the first ever Excellence in Safety Award. This award acknowledges the county's efforts to show, and also shows our appreciation for the hard work that I know your staff puts into this and the backing you have consistently given to that department. So I'm just saying, well done, and as I said, this is the only one that's going out to anybody, and it's going to Mojave County.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hardy. It's a beautiful award, and we certainly appreciate hearing that we're the #1 county as far as being responsible, and having this pointed out to the other counties makes me very proud, so thank you very much. Okay, we'll now go on to the consent agenda. The following items listed under the consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion of the items unless a board member so request. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. So beginning with Supervisor Johnson, do you have anything you would like removed?
No, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Watson?
I have none this morning.
Supervisor Moss?
None.
And I have none. So I'll entertain a motion to approve items 5 through 27.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve items 5 through 27 of the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
A motion as second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item passes unanimously. So going on to the regular agenda now. Under Coral Lloyd, the Financial Service Director, item number 28, discussion of possible action, adoption of the FY 2016-2017 tentative budget with modifications, and set August 1st, 2016 as the date for the public hearing on the final budget and tax levy and truth in taxation, if applicable, and set a special board meeting for adoption of the final budget on August 1st, 2016, following the public hearing. I do have two persons who have signed up to speak on this item, so I'll go ahead and let them speak before we ask Ms. Curl to come up. We'll begin with Berlin Tennell. Berlin is the clerk of Superior Court. Good morning, Berlin.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and other members. Appreciate the opportunity to speak briefly with you. The budget process seems to get easier and easier each year. I don't know if that's just because the money is so tight and there's no money to go around or not, but it's great to hear that we're saving $1 million here and $1 million there. But in the meantime, our employees are suffering greatly. They haven't had a raise in years. The last time they did get a raise of 2.5%, it was offset by FICA and retirement increases, so they didn't see an increase then either. So it's been years and years and years. The sheriff's officers, those people are getting a small raise. It's not big enough to do what they do. And after the last week or 10 days, I don't know that we could pay them enough to do their jobs. But I really hope that in the next budget or in the very near future that the board would consider all of the county, all of the compression issues, all of the employees who are lacking raises instead of just the hit and miss that seems to be going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Berlin, and I totally agree with you. I think we need to look at all the employees in Mojave County. Our next speaker is Stephen Robinson. Stephen Robinson wants to speak in opposition of item number 28. If you could give us your name and address for the record.
I'm Stephen Robinson in Golden Valley. Chairman Bishop, board members, staff, 20 years ago during Supervisor Johnson's first term, budget workshops were held 3 full days where each of the department heads would come before the Board of Supervisors and state their case and argue why they believed in of their own individual budgets. That gradually started going down to where by 2011 and 12 there were no public budget hearings. They have started going back up, but I think it would be time for the community and the public to have a better grasp on the budget where the people come before the board, not before the county administrator. Over that last 10 years, the county's general fund reserves have been underreported every year to an extreme where in 2013 it was only reported that $1.9 million in the general fund cash reserves. And the previous finance director said, well, we don't have to disclose what we don't plan to use. Well, thankfully, under the new director, Ms. Lloyd, she's done a very good job of reporting it. And in fact, last year, they came out with their first financial reserve, written reserve policy that I had ever seen in the county's records. Maybe there is something years ago, but last year's. In that account, you showed that you should have 60 to 90 days in reserves. Well, now this year, you've added two other things. You revised the policy to now add for a 2.5% contingency fund and a 1% of rainy day fund. Then last year, and this is my frustration, last year you chose to raise taxes $2.5 million instead of using the flexibility language that this board had asked for to avoid that tax increase. And again, this year you've voted not to use those flexibility funds and leaving things unfunded that are needed, like a big copier machine for copying maps. So I'm thinking maybe it's time to start freeing up some of these reserves and using them where they're really needed. There's a lot of departments that had things they requested that was said no to, not by the board, but by the county administrator. So I hope the budget process will go back to the way it was 20 years ago, where there was good hearings before the public and before the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Okay, Cora Lloyd. Good morning. I'll just turn the floor over to you.
All right, thank you. Good
You
morning.
start us out this morning.
In accordance with ARS, by the third Monday in July, the Board of Supervisors is required to adopt the tentative budget. So that is the point that we are at today. Before you actually adopt that budget, you certainly have an opportunity to continue to discuss items that you may want to include, to exclude, or modify in any manner. It is important that we have that discussion generally today if there's going to be any sort of increase, because the tentative budget is the ceiling that will be established, and anything that occurs as an adjustment to the final budget will need to be at least below and not exceed the tentative budget. Included in your packet are a few lists, one of which are any modifications that were made between our last discussion with the preliminary budget and the preparation of the tentative budget. And most of those really are housekeeping types of items, but there are a few items where, for example, we included the county attorney's initiatives into the tentative budget, and that was a failure on my part to have initially included those within the preliminary budget. The second group of list includes the initiatives as they were listed in the preliminary budget, and we've layered in a column there to show you whether we've included those or excluded those. And there's just a few items that were not included. I think that the remaining item that was not included was on new initiative page 2, which was where the Justice Court had requested that court enhancement funds no longer pay for their security, and that we move that to a general fund item within their budget. And then we've also included the capital initiative items that were included in your preliminary budget, just as they were. For the capital items, for anything that's general fund related, the Board of Supervisors is the group of folks that are basically have the authorization to approve those or exclude those. So if they were general fund related, we did not include them in your preliminary or tentative. At this point, you would have to add them back into that tentative budget if so desired. The third item was just for maybe my edification, but the Property Tax Oversight Commission at the state level provides all of our jurisdictions each year with a calculation based upon our levy limit and what our truth in taxation rate would be if our rate included the new growth. So I included a sheet, a little spreadsheet with a lot of numbers on it, but it basically layers in the assessed values for the last several years and the assessed value that will be going forward for this next budget year. the tax rate that we currently have, and then a column showing what the taxes would be if we adopted the TNT rate, and then the maximum rates. And I did that for the general fund, the library, TV, flood control districts, and then did a combined rate. And the bulk of the information in here is really the actual tentative budget as developed on the prescribed forms required by the Auditor General's office. So at this point, I will turn it back over to you with any questions. The culmination of your discussion today, you will need to adopt a tentative budget with any modifications and set the final budget hearing for the August 1st meeting, as well as the tax rate hearing. It's combined. If it's a truth and taxation hearing, that would be, we would have to do some extra work. That would mean that you would adopt a tax levy that would be above the TNT rate. And then we would need you to set a special board meeting following the public hearing on the budget. So.
Okay, Coral, one thing I've been asked a lot of questions about freezing the 5 deputy positions with the sheriff's recommendation, and I'd like to revisit that, if I may, and have some further discussion on that item.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if Chief Deputy Rodney Head is here or not, that could come up and answer a few more questions on that. Okay, not seeing him, maybe I should make a motion for discussion on this. Can I do that?
Discussion or reconsideration.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion for reconsideration on the sheriff's budget item for the freezing of the 5 deputy positions.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, I'll open that up for discussion then, starting with Supervisor Johnson.
Ms. Lloyd, the proposal they have before us is for how much money? $400 and some thousand?
It was about, I believe, $468,000.
And they're going to spend the entire $468,000?
Yes. And in addition, another $50,000 is what I'm estimating.
In addition, another $50,000 above that, so the freezing of 5 positions is actually going to cost us money?
A little bit. Mm-hmm.
And then next year, that's $500,000 that we're short in the budget?
It would be $500,000 that we would be short in the fund balance, but essentially, if they kept their budget the same, it would be included. What they've been doing is essentially is under their budget, let's say was $11.9 million, and they've been spending $11.3, $11.4 million. So they were anticipating utilizing the savings that has been rolling over each year, actually eliminating the positions and planning on using that money to increase the other salaries.
Madam Chairman, may I ask Director Lloyd a question?
Yeah.
So basically, you're saying there, instead of that vacancy savings going to the back into the general fund, they're utilizing that to fund the salaries, but that full amount is budgeted last year, and their budget hasn't changed for this year, except for the $50,000 in overtime that you mentioned earlier.
There were some other changes in their budget, but it wasn't related to this reorganization. There was a reduction in a grant that has been matching, where they've been doing some split funds, and that was reduced or eliminated. And that was quite a bit of money, $300,000 or so, I believe, a year that will be going away. So their budget is actually going to increase, but not necessarily as a result of this reorganization. If the reorganization did not occur and they were unable to fill those positions, they had other vacancies, then we would be able to absorb the loss of the grant within the current budget, I would estimate.
And then anybody else that's hired, excuse me, during that time, 'cause they still have 10 positions, is obviously going to be hired, because the new hires are going up in pay also?
No, the salary, the entry level did not change, so the scale did not change.
Okay, so it'll only be for the long-term employees? And what was the reason behind adding the extra $50,000? I thought that was included in the 468.
The reason was that when they made the proposal initially, that the calculation included, as far as I could see in my discussion with Chief Deputy, it included the compensation, a reduction of their vehicle replacement, some factors like that, but it did not include the additional overtime. And since it was overall a 10% increase, then I estimated a 10% increase in overtime and related public safety pension participation.
And how much do we have budgeted for overtime now?
Oh, gosh. It was $500,000, I think, close to that. I can look it up.
If you're saying 10%, that'd be, we've got $500,000 somewhere
Yeah.
in there. I guess the other part that concerns me is that you've also budgeted $200,000 for a new vehicle, a rescue vehicle?
No, that
No?
was included in their capital request, and we did not put that into the budget. For the armored vehicle, is that what you're?
Right.
Yeah. It was $271,254, and we did not include that because it would require general funds, and we would have to get permission from you. So they've asked for it, but we didn't include that.
I think those are the questions I have right now.
Okay, Supervisor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman Bishop. For quite some time, I've been concerned about the sheriff's office and the compression issues, the turnover, and our lack of ability of recruitment. So just in this one special case, I am very interested in making sure that the sheriff's office has the resources available to keep our current people, and that's my first concern. And I'm hoping that when the new sheriff is elected, that we can put together a good program that we can bring the sheriff's office, Mojave County Sheriff's Office, up to 100% capacity instead of the current 70% that we're operating under. Those officers and the job that they do are so important to Mojave County as its citizens. I feel it behooves us to take a special, careful look and consistently try to address those needs as best we can. So I'll be staying in favor of their intent to reduce the number and increase those salaries. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Moss.
Yes, I do have some questions, just to make sure it's clear for the public. Before Chief Head's proposal, what was the budgeted number of deputies available for the Sheriff's Department?
The budgeted number of deputies?
Yes.
I think the number you're looking for, they're 15 down. I'm not sure what the total.
I'm going to get to that. I want to establish the top, where they're at, and where they intend to go over the course of this year, despite the 5 frozen positions.
We'll look it up real quick.
Thank you.
Sixty-six deputy sheriff positions.
That's how much they have, or how much they want to have?
That's how many they have.
And they want, what's their budgeted for amount, the actual amount that they wish to go to?
I believe they're budgeted for 90.
It's 90-something, but I don't want to give Ms. Lloyd.
I have it backwards. So they would have had 71, and it would go to 66.
Okay. Are you saying that there is a total of 71 budgeted for positions as opposed to actual positions in the Mojave County Sheriff's Department? Because my understanding is that their budgeted for amount, the amount that they could hire, is somewhere in the low 90s.
They have 124 full-time positions, and in the 90s, I believe, includes their executive staff.
Thank you. That's where I'm getting at.
Okay.
Now, they're going to reduce that number by 5.
Yes.
But they're during the course of the year, in order to pay for the compression fix, but over the course of the year, they're going to bring that 60-some up to 80-some. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a couple questions. We agreed to freeze the 5 positions, but if we get a new elected sheriff and all of a sudden we get an influx of employees and he unfreezes these positions, then where does the money go to continue the pay raises? I mean, where does the money come from to continue these pay raises that the freezing of those positions are carrying?
You would have to authorize the unfreezing of those positions. When that occurs, I expect that what's going to happen in the next 6 months is that the Board of Supervisors, along with me and all of the other department heads, obviously the county administrator, we're going to have many discussions on the revenue side of that. So either we will continue to have to reduce staff, or we're going to have to raise revenue or eliminate services of some sort. So I think that this past year, with developing the program budgets, allowed you to see, at least with greater transparency, some of the programs and those programs that are mandated and those that were not. So those are all options that are on the table. Clearly, there would not be future money at this point unless something changed legislatively that allowed us to adjust the property taxes of some sort, outside of raising a tax, adding a sales tax, or amending the fees of some sort.
Okay, so we have to have a revenue source in order to take care of the compression issue for not only the sheriff's office, but for the rest of the county
Yeah,
as
to
well.
sustain that, yes.
What, could we eliminate these positions and make it easier financially for us to deal with, so we don't have to freeze or unfreeze? The sheriff could come back and ask for these positions back if needed.
Not necessarily. I mean, even if you eliminate the position, they were going to have to come back before you to add back officers. And an elimination at times means that there's been some sort of reorganization where you're not really seeing the need for that position out into the future. I believe that the sheriff's office is definitely testifying that they need the positions, but that they're unable to currently retain and recruit those positions and keep them filled based upon probably a number of reasons, but one of them is a lack of pay movement.
Okay, and when we freeze these positions, do the benefits also go away as far as the money, the vehicles,
Yes.
the insurance? And,
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and what would be the difficulty in waiting until after the election to make this decision?
There isn't any on our end. From the financial perspective, definitely, we can do that. From the sheriff's office, I would be speculating to speak on behalf of them, but to try to stand in their shoes, they currently provided information indicating that they have lost a lot of senior experienced officers. So the risk is putting into, the unknown future, their appeal, if you will, to come back in 6 months, and it may be the same 5 board members, and it may be different people to again go through that. So I'm speculating here, but I'm guessing that's the issue, is what do we do with the people in between time, and we're looking at an unknown versus a known right now.
Exactly, and this can be done at any time during the year, correct? It doesn't have to be done during the budget process.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the election for the sheriff decided in the primary election? Do we have, or will that go on to the general?
I don't believe there's any Democrats running. I think it's primary election.
Madam Chairman, while the election may be decided in the primary, that individual doesn't take office until January.
Okay. All right,
I have another question, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Johnson, go ahead.
Did we have any input from HR in this?
No, I don't believe so.
So HR didn't review this proposal that was brought forward by the sheriff to say?
I don't believe so. CHR, but I don't believe so.
Do we have anyone from HR that can?
In the meantime, Madam Chair, I have a question, if I could.
I don't see anyone from HR coming
I
down.
think they
so-
went to go get someone for us. I saw them holding up a finger saying wait and running out the door.
All righty, Supervisor Moss, what do,
This is actually for Attorney Ekstrom. I'm not, I need your advice here, because my understanding is that the board right now can vote to not fund the Sheriff's Department one way or the other, but we cannot revisit the issue of the freeze because it was not agendized to give the Sheriff's Department notice. Am I incorrect or correct about that?
In reading the agenda item, Supervisor Moss, I think it gives this board considerable latitude in discussing and deciding on the components of the budget.
So both this meeting and the next
Identify
meeting?
every potential issue that could come up would be impossible.
Okay. So between this meeting and the next meeting, we can essentially vote to do anything we like on the budget, even if it's not specifically agendized?
As long as you don't increase it.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry, the HR people are here now.
good morning, Mr. Cunningham. We have some questions for you this morning. Supervisor Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you. Did you have any input into what the Sheriff's Department brought forward with their raises?
I did read it, but no, I didn't have input on it. But the positions, what the sheriff is doing, some of the other positions are, some of the other departments are doing like items. So it fell in line with what the county's been doing for other departments, but I didn't have direct input on the sheriff's office, no.
I guess you've confused me there. We're giving pay raises in other departments too?
As part of the budget, there's some reorganizations going on throughout the county where some positions are being eliminated to bring other positions up to market value. Like, for example, public health, our nurses. In the budget, they are giving up a position to bring their nurses up to market value so we can drop the retention rate, or increase the retention rate and lower the turnover rate, which is what the sheriff is trying to do.
Now, did those other ones went through you, the nurses and those other ones went through?
Yes, sir.
But the sheriff did not go through you?
Like I said, I reviewed it, but I didn't sit down with the sheriff and go over his plan, no.
Okay, so you didn't compare with other departments to see if what he was putting was in line or not?
Well, the wages are in line, but no, I didn't compare with other departments for the sheriff.
That's all I had, Madam Chair. Thank you.
If I could, Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Supervisor
Just to
Moss.
make sure that I have my understanding out there for the record. There are currently 94 sworn law enforcement officers in the Sheriff's Department that are budgeted for. There are actually 75 filled positions, so we're just under 20 short. The sheriff, under their proposal, will be filling roughly 15 of those positions over the course of the next year, and will hopefully improve their retention of senior deputies by those 5 positions that they froze. So they intend to undertake a massive recruitment effort over the next year, and they do not think it's logistically possible for them to actually get 20 completed qualified candidates through the program, and they're targeting 15, which is why they're doing the freeze. So by assisting the Sheriff's Department on this compression issue as requested by the Sheriff's Department, we're not interfering with their plans or their administration, and we're actually improving their efficiency by enabling them to retain their senior law enforcement officers. That's my understanding, and that's why I'm going to continue to support the Sheriff's Department's proposal.
Can you tell me these other positions that are being moved around in other departments, are they being frozen as well, or are they being eliminated?
Madam Chairman, may I field that, please?
Sure.
One of the things that I have told the board is that in my administration, I've offered if a department can reorganize and restructure and do that within their budget and save the county money, what our process is that HR comes in and evaluates the changes and makes recommendation on any salary adjustments. And that restructure, reorganization has always been brought directly to the Board of Supervisors, and the board, you all have approved it each time. So it's happened in flood control. It's happened in engineering. It's happened in, you will see it, what we're looking at in community development is to try to streamline and right-size the department and restructure the leadership so that we can retain our qualified employees, which is a goal of the county, and try to retain some of the management structure, because quite frankly, and I haven't kept this a secret from the board, is we're losing our managers. The health department has been incredibly hard hit. I told you that in an email that they have lost 5 out of 7 of their health department nurses. We've lost our flood control district engineer. We've lost our environmental health supervisor. We're losing a lot of the institutional knowledge that the county has built up over the years. And it might not be because of salaries. It's because of a lot of reasons. And it's something that the board and I will have to address at a future date. What Chief Deputy Head is doing is trying to preserve the structure that he currently has. And he's provided the board with his best recommendation to do so. Now, the board has the choice on whether to allow the Sheriff's Office to move forward with that structural change or not. But when we went into a negotiation process with Chief Deputy Head and the sheriff, he proposed this and it's a mini restructure. He's doing it within his allotted salary structure, the amount of money that he has currently available, and he's willing to, as he's testified in front of the board, either freeze or eliminate the positions, whatever the board chose. Just his main concern was to preserve those his management structure and not lose that. And you ask the question, what happens if we delay that? Nobody knows. We don't have a crystal ball, but quite conceivably, during the meantime, if we wait 6 months until the newly elected officials take office, conceivably you could lose one or more of his management structure. And that's a possibility. I'm not saying that would happen, but I'm sure that's a concern of the Sheriff's Office. But thank you for letting me butt in there.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. And I think...
I have a question, Madam Chair, of the manager or the administrator.
Sure.
You said that you've told all the departments that you have a process. That process comes to when you go through HR, but this one didn't go through HR, correct?
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, that's my understanding, that it didn't go through that process. However, when we met in negotiations with Chief Deputy Head in the Sheriff's Office, we did mention, he was extremely concerned about retaining his management structure, and we did offer the same thing I've offered to all departments, that if he could restructure in a way and actually do it so that he wasn't increasing his budget, he was doing it within the existing monies that he had available, that we would certainly support that to the Board of Supervisors. I'm not sure he was totally aware of the process, and I'm not sure that his middle management structures are changing. He's wanting to eliminate lower range deputies, but it appeared from our discussion with him what he was proposing was feasible.
I guess it's not that I have a problem with it. I don't believe that the deputies aren't low paid, but I believe our whole county has a problem with the way the wages are structured and keeping up with the cost of living. And where I have a problem is with the Sheriff's Department and large departments, puts them at an advantage and a disadvantage to people like, say, the clerk of the Superior Court, who has a smaller staff and can't just say, well, I'm going to get rid of one position. I'm afraid we're opening up, if we don't address the entire county, all the employees, and put a plan in that's sustainable for everybody, and it satisfies the needs of the constituents we serve and those who are paying the taxes, we could get an attitude in departments, not saying that we would, but they're going to say, well, we're out for ourselves, so maybe the IT guy says, instead of replacing computers every 3 years, we're going to replace them 5 years, and I'm going to give my people a pay raise. And other departments are going to do that, where county services will suffer. I think that by looking at the sheriffs only, we're making a big mistake with other employees that we have. That's what bothers me.
Madam Chairman, I couldn't agree with Supervisor Johnson more. To take a look at the entire, and that's why I've offered that at least that partial Band-Aid solution to each department, because we don't have a revenue stream to be able to accomplish the needed change and benefit to our employees throughout the whole entire county. So one of the things that I would certainly like to look at, and Coral touched on trying to address this next year. Obviously, we don't have the revenue stream established to take a look at the employee issues and employee wages this year. I believe the restructuring is the only tool in my toolbox that I could offer so that we could accomplish right-sizing the department and benefiting some employees without additional revenues. What we are going to be talking to you and having a dialogue with each individual board member on this next year is trying to identify additional revenue source that would benefit all of Mojave County residents, possibly a trade-off between property taxes and a sales tax. And obviously that's going to be something that the board will decide on and for board discussion. But then looking at benefiting the entire amount of employees in Mojave County through possibly a class comp study and a commitment by the board for a continuation of a raise program for each employee if they achieve a certain standard or something like that, and we'll be putting that together for board consideration this year.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't know you had a question. I apologize.
No, I was just going to make a statement, so go ahead.
I've already said that I support the chief deputy's compression solution, and from what I'm hearing, it fits in with the flexibility that the county administrator has intended to give all the department heads in an effort to deal with their issues. There's another issue here that we should also keep in mind. 2 weeks ago, we voted to adopt Chief Deputy Head's proposal, and we have many senior deputies who for the last 2 weeks have thought that they were in line to have their compression issue fixed. Depending on what we do today, we could very well cut the legs out from those senior employees. I don't imagine that their response will be positive from a morale and a longevity standpoint. So I really think that by reconsidering this issue and going the opposite direction, we will have done more harm than good, which is another reason I would encourage this board to stay the course on Chief Deputy Head's proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And what I wanted to say is that I do approve of the restructuring, and it is a Band-Aid solution, but I think we need a plan that's sustainable for everybody, and that means we need to do a class comp study, and that means we need a revenue source, and obviously the revenue source is not there today. And I've said last budget year and this budget year in the beginning that I would like to see a small sales tax of a quarter of a penny, and then a reduction in property taxes. And I think if the board can ever come together and vote unanimously for that, I think the comp study can then be done. Property taxes could be lowered, and sales tax could be shared by many, many, many people that are traveling through our counties. So, but that's not going to happen this budget year, but I keep throwing it out because I keep hoping that it's going to stick if I keep throwing it out there. So that's all I had to say. I think the compression issue is huge, and I look forward to getting that solved.
I have some other questions, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Johnson.
In your budget, are we paying off the jail?
We will pay that, we will have to include that in the next year's budget, in the 18 budget. So the earliest we can pay that is April 1st of 2018.
Well, that's
So-
not true. You could pay it today if you have the money. You give them the money, and they hold that money. That way, it's not in our account for us to be stealing it or doing anything else with it. We can put the money in there in an account, and they draw on that account when the money's due, correct?
And I checked on that to see.
All right. The other question I have, and this might be more for Administrator Hendricks, if the general fund is going to pick up security at the justice courts, are you as the county administrator going to be in charge of those people now? If they come under general fund, we're in.
Not something that I'm going to take the ball and run with. If you want it agendized, I have no knowledge of what the court's needs are. You know, obviously that we manage this, the general fund, and risk management manages the security for our non-court facilities. The courts, under certain statutes, are responsible for the operations of their building, and that could be viewed as also responsible for providing the necessary security. You know, they've set the what they believe is necessary as no gun areas in their court facilities, and I'm not sure the board can take responsibility and overturn that. Same as us dictating what they can and can't do with their security. And you know, saying general fund is paying for it. General fund actually funds a large portion of all of the courts. It's just part of it, and because we're taking over additional security in the Lake Havasu complex or any other building, doesn't necessarily mean that money isn't coming out of the same pot as it always did.
Well, I'm sure it does, but we're still giving a lump sum payment to the courts, basically.
Essentially.
Essentially, so we give them a lump sum payment, and they covered those costs before, and now they're giving those duties back to us to cover. If it's coming back to us, I'm just saying that we could, if the security guards are going to fall under us, then we should be, I mean, obviously we do the courts, whatever they have to do with security and all of that, but still, they can do other things for the county that they're not doing now.
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, I'm not fully understanding, and I haven't identified any areas that they could be doing extra for the rest of the county, but if the board wants to visit that issue, I can certainly work with you and try to put together an agenda item and see how the board feels that we should move forward with that particular issue.
I think it's just mostly if we have, by office, I don't, Supervisor Moss isn't in a place, and I think Supervisor Angus is, but where the security guards can be used to come down if there's a problem in the other parts of the building and stuff, where I don't think they're able to do that now. Just for protection of the other county employees that are there.
I can certainly work with risk management, work with the court side, and ensure that they do. I don't see that there isn't any logical reason why, if there's an issue in one part of the building, that the security for the courts can't or should not respond. They should be responding to those issues. And I can certainly personally look into that issue and make sure that's their clear understanding.
Okay. Anything else, Supervisor Johnson?
Let somebody else have a go at it.
I'll make an effort, Madam Chair. First off, just for clarification, have we resolved the motion for reconsideration on the sheriff's freeze yet? Is that the topic of conversation? Or can we be more expansive with our questions to Ms. Lloyd concerning the budget? Because right now there's a pending motion on the floor, and I don't think we've dealt with that.
Actually, the motion was just for a discussion, so.
So is there any further action on the freeze issue?
Well, we did a reconsideration, so now we have to have a motion to go ahead with whatever we're going to do, because now we're back to where we were before.
Okay, so
we can take care of that issue and then go on.
Okay. Then I move that we continue to accept the adoption of Chief Deputy Rodney's Head's solution to the to the compression issue.
Okay, we have a
And
motion
I'll second the motion.
and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes to continue. Okay. Further discussion, Supervisor Moss?
Yeah, just some questions, and I have to first say, Ms. Lloyd, every time I look at your budget, I smile, because I actually understand a whole bunch of it, and I don't know if that's because of my longevity on the board, or because you're just so good at your job, or your staff is so good at their jobs. But you've done an outstanding job, in my opinion. Okay, I do have a couple questions, just for my edification. On the cash budget, did we include depreciation this year?
Depreciation? I believe that we did. We had to go in for any area where we were doing, in order to get to the financial statement conversion. Essentially, I was trying to do a reconciliation so that any casual observer can go to our website, pull up our financial statements, pull the fund balances or any information in there and tie it back to the budget numbers. So we did have to include a depreciation line in the funds area for each of the funds, and then a capital elimination line item in order to get those to convert between the budget and the financial statements.
Does that mean that our actual cash expenditures are being overstated to the casual observer? Because you don't spend depreciation, it's
That's
not
correct.
cash in your hand.
No, they should be very, very close. Where they are distorted, if you will, is more in the contingency line item, because you're adding in the contingency as a component of an expenditure, but it may not be spent. It's very unlikely that it would be spent, in fact.
Okay.
So that does distort the cash flow.
So the depreciation is actually embodied within our cash via the contingency?
It is. In that bottom section, we've called it other sources and uses, and we've tried to get that to as much of a cash basis as you could get to for the budget comparisons.
Okay. The second, so I'm not meaning to beat a dead horse here. I'm just making sure I understand. So when the viewers try to go through the budget
Sure.
and track things through, in the cash budget, if they see depreciation, that's actually being captured in the, I'll call it the total budget, more or less via the contingency.
Yes.
Okay. The second thing I have is going through, and this was actually, the source was the assessor's office when they talked about efficiencies within their department with the program that they liked. I noticed that your department wanted a CAFR module concerning building issues. Is that correct?
Ours, for the finance department, that's the comprehensive annual financial reporting software module in order to build our financial statements. So what we're currently doing and what the staff has been doing for many, many, many years is downloading information out of our computer system into a variety of spreadsheets and then building bridges within the spreadsheets to get the spreadsheets to communicate and do the accrual conversions and some things like that to get to the Auditor General's office. So when I inquired about that, there's a module, a software module for our accounting system that is supposed to do those conversions automatically within the system.
Okay. The reason I ask that is, and I'm going to preface my remarks, you and your staff do outstanding. But it seems like every year that I read the audited financial reports that we get dinged on one thing or the other.
Oh, yes.
And I don't blame you for that, because when you're dealing with tens of millions of dollars, you're going to get dinged on one thing or the other. It's just, there's a lot going on in there. Would that CAFR module lessen the risk of the Auditor General's office hitting Mojave County on one material weakness or the other?
That is, yes, absolutely. That is the intent.
Okay. And does that cost $17,575?
That is the, yes, that's the estimated capital expenditure, and then there would be an annual additional operating cost of about $2,500, I believe.
Okay. And that would be, the $2,500 would be after the initial purpose. Every year, we'd have to write a check in order to update our programs and keep current with the license for the use of software.
Correct.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone have any further questions for Ms. Lloyd? Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Actually, if I could, Madam Chair, I'd like to have a bit of discussion amongst the board before I make any motion, if you'll indulge me. On the CAFR building program module that Ms. Lloyd's office requested, it's a minimal expenditure of, what, $17,575. there's a minimal renewal fee of $2,500 a year. And I do think the county gets the black eye every now and then on these financial auditor reports where they hit us with one weakness or the other. Now, I don't think there's any legal consequence to the county because of our slap on the hand by the Auditor's General's part, but I think it might be somewhat embarrassing to the public that we get dinged every now and then. And if there's a modest investment that could be made, which would maybe resolve those issues, I think we should seriously consider it, especially since I think Ms. Lloyd's department has done such an extremely good job. I think that they've proven that when it comes to handling money and handling their duties, they're a group that can be trusted. So I'd invite comment from the county administrator on that issue if you would indulge us, because again, we have departments that function and they function well, but just like the assessor's department, there's small things that we can do to make them function more efficiently to the betterment of the county. And so this is just another issue that maybe I think the board should look at.
Mr. Hendricks, can you answer that?
I would, earlier this morning, you know, it was brought up that and it was alluded to that, you know, I make decisions on certain things during the budget process. And what actually it is, it's a negotiation between each department. And we spend great pains trying to come up with the best recommendation we can to the Board of Supervisors based on operation and efficiencies, and we take all that into consideration, and money's available. And we try to be fair to each department, and if we tell one department we're going to try to hold the line, we try to do that with all departments so that they feel like they've been treated fairly, and you could see the spirit of cooperation this year and last year with the elected officials and departments that we received during the budget process. We then, once we get done and we provide the best staff recommendation we possibly can to the board, you know, you have a budget workshop where each individual department, if they disagree, or each elected official, if they disagree with any part of those negotiations, can come to the board and make their case on why they think we made it was wrong for administration not to support them on certain issues, and also explain why they believed any issues that we disagreed with should be decided by the board in their favor. As you saw, there was very little discussion with the elected officials and department heads at our budget workshop on issues that they disagreed with administration on. It wasn't because I'm strong-handed, because I'm not. But I believe the reason that there was little discussion is because we were extremely fair, and we all played as a team, and we all worked together. And so to answer your question, and I apologize for being so long-winded, what's my recommendation? My recommendation stands as what we recommended to the board on what I believe was the minimum amount of stuff required for each individual department to function properly.
Madam Chair, if I may. I went on to the comments and the plaudits I gave to Ms. Lloyd and her department. I'm also going to share with you, County Administrator Hendricks. I think you've done an amazing job. I mean, look at the size of that budget. I mean, it's a massive document. And I think it's really the role of the board over the course of our various budget meetings to look through those and to put our own individual judgment on these items. And the fact that I have, if you go through the various items that I've raised this meeting and now this meeting, the touch that I would have preferred to put onto the budget is extraordinarily light in light of the massive tasks that you had before you. And what I think we need to do as a government is, one, I think the citizens need to see that the board members are reading this budget and we're engaging our department heads and our county administration in debate on these various issues, and I think we've done that. But secondly, to express what each of us individually think would be a good management for the county in relation to us reporting to our bosses, which is the voters. And something I've noticed as I've been going through these budget documents for the last 2 months or thereabouts is that we do get hit by the Auditor General's office with these deficiencies in our reporting. I don't blame Ms. Lloyd for that. I think anybody, any attorney going through any other attorney's file is going to hit them with deficiencies. And I see that Mr. Ekstrom is agreeing with me. But despite that, our acknowledgement of that, we have the opportunity for a minimal investment to reduce those efficiencies, which I think would help with the public's confidence in our budgetary process and the administration of the various departments. And it's a very modest expense, and maybe we would see less of a slap on the wrist from the Auditor General's office if we made that modest investment, which is why I would move that we include the CAFR program module that the financial department requested into this budget.
Okay,
That is a motion.
I was going to say, is that a motion? So do we have a second?
I'll second the motion for discussion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for discussion, so take it away, Supervisor Watson.
If I could have Ms. Lloyd to the podium. Thank you, Ms. Lloyd. In past years, when we're dealing with the auditor's comments, I've noticed a few odd and ends that haven't been addressed, but I don't know that we're in such a mode that we need to invest huge amount of dollars to correct those. Am I wrong in assuming that we're almost pretty close in satisfying the auditors?
We are not close. We're not close at all.
Not
I believe
close.
that we had 12 findings last year. We have a lot of work. There's been a lot of things that have occurred, a lot of changeover, if you will, and when the changes occur in another department, the people that were previously doing those functions, paying bills, receiving revenue, the new people have to be changed or trained in doing so. It requires more effort on our end. Sometimes they don't understand why. We've downsized staff and finance from 2009-10 from 14 people to 10 people. There's fewer people to get the work done. So I would say that we're still 2 years out from removing most of those findings, if you will. Quite a bit of them was on the IT end. So again, similar issues. We're struggling to get some of the daily work done. We filed late last year. We filed in May last year. Some of that was, I'm going to blame the state for some of that, of course, but some of that was definitely born in my department with us getting all of the work done. Some of the issue at risk is that when we have findings that are associated with the grants, which many of them were, so we have to form a partnership with the other departments in making sure that they're following the correct accounting protocols, if you will, that we are risking some of those dollars from recurring. So we have to get our arms around our cost allocation programs, our reporting of the financial statements to be more timely and accurate, and specifically related to some of those grants, or those will be in jeopardy in future years. And essentially, there's not you have 3 years to fix this or else. That's a directive, but that is at risk. We've already received one letter from one of the reporting agencies saying, we noticed that these findings were for the second year on the audit, and we would like to see those basically corrected.
Right, and that's what I recall.
Yep.
So the CFR module will help you correct all those?
I believe that it's going to help us. I don't think that that alone is not the baseline issue.
That's
That's
not
just
the
a
answer,
contributor to the amount of time that it takes to compile the financial statements.
But this will help, is that correct?
It would absolutely would help.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But also a portion of this is each department has to come up with their portion too.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, there's a lot of investment and understanding by the departments and the new people that are filling the shoes, the transition. Some of it is, this is how we've done it for the last 14 years, and there's been some changes. So.
Yeah, many changes. Thank you, Chairman Bishop. As usual, she's answered my questions. Thank you, Ms. Lloyd.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Supervisor Johnson.
I think we went through the process, and with Administrator Hendricks handling all these where everybody wants something. I mean, we have elected officials in the audience today. We got the county attorney and like I said, the clerk of the court, who probably all had small projects that they would like to have done. And I think everybody's had to suffer and cut back. I think just with the finance director talking about how they've cut down on personnel, all of our departments have cut down on personnel, and obviously we're going to have some problems when we're doing that. And I think that's why we need to look at settling all these and not just as piecemeal. I think we're just making it harder on ourselves next year with what we're doing, right now. I think another problem that we've got is we've got department heads that have been recently hired, that we've hired for considerably more money than department heads who have a lot of tenure with us right now. And I'd hate to see us lose those people. I mean, I'm not going to come in and second guess. I understand Supervisor Moss, it's a good idea to be able to do this. But I know the negotiations went on and everybody gave up what they thought they could to continue to run it at an adequate level. And so at this point, with the amount of money we have and the revenues that are coming in and everybody that's been cut so much, I just can't support added even a $17,000 difference in. That's why I'll be there.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Supervisor Moss.
I want to thank Supervisor Watson and Supervisor Johnson for their commentary. And I would also like to clarify, Ms. Lloyd has not discussed this issue with me, and neither has anyone within her department. This is something when I was reviewing the budget, I observed. And the thought was provoked by the assessor's office, and they're looking to make their department more efficient with fairly modest investments. And I would consider this to be one of those type of proposals, but it's even less than what the assessor's office proposed. And I don't view this meeting and the next meeting and any other meetings that we have regarding the budget as being ones that the board simply looks at the county administrator's recommendations and the budget, the department head's negotiations, and we decide, well, that's fine with us. I think this is one where we provide oversight and comment on. And sometimes each individual board member's proposals get shot down in flames, and I've certainly experienced that, and sometimes they're adopted. And I think this is one that we should consider for adoption because it's our role as the taxpayers' employees to serve as a watchdog for their money, and this is one which would get our financials into better compliance. And other than public safety, I think the monies that we spend in making sure that the state and our public is comfortable with how we do our jobs is probably the second most important thing we do in the county when it comes to acting as fiduciaries for those monies. So I think it's, like I said, there's a motion on the floor. I'd like the board to consider it and see what comes of it.
Okay, I agree that Coral has done an outstanding job, and unlike the speaker on the floor, I would not like to return to 20 years ago because I was with the county 20 years ago, and that's a ridiculous statement. But I think I also want to recognize Representative Regina Cobb, who's been in the audience all morning long, and our state senator Sue Donahue for setting through all of this budget discussion, and they were at the state working for us hard, and last year the state swept $2.5 million from us, and they were able to reduce that this year to nearly half of that being swept. So I just wanted to give kudos to our state representatives. But back to the subject at hand, I would be in support of giving Coral all the tools that she can use to handle the financial end, because as you can see from this book, it's very complex, and I think if we can help her out and we can find the monies to do that, that I would be in support of that. So,
Call for the question.
okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I think, didn't I have a motion on the floor?
Yeah, you got a motion.
Yes.
So we have a motion, do we have a second?
And a second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, is there any further discussion on the budget? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to,
Move to approve.
Madam Chairman, we have one more item.
Rich is going to adopt the tentative budget.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
we're good then. Okay.
Madam Chair, with the corrections or the confirmation of adopting the Sheriff's Department compression solution and the inclusion of the CAFR module building program, I move that we approve the preliminary budget that's been presented to us. The tentative budget that's been presented to us with modifications.
Okay.
Tentative budget, yes, and I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Okay. Motion passes.
Excuse me. I also believe they need a motion to include having the special meeting. I mean, you adopted the tentative budget, but also in her motion, she's asking for you to approve a special meeting
Thank you,
following the
Jenny. You're
public
right.
hearing.
You're right. We do need a motion for this special meeting to be held August 1st.
So moved.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Jenny. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item number 29, under Administrative Hendricks. Discussion and possible action, Ray, acknowledge the board appointees to the Citizens Animal Shelter Needs Assessment Committee as follows. District 1 Supervisor Gary Watson, Tracy Langley. District 2 Supervisor Hildy Angus, Donna Hill. District 3 Supervisor Buster Johnson, Gene Hepler. District 4 Supervisor Gene Bishop, Billy Tedesco. And District 5 Supervisor Steve Moss, Salvador Scarmano.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve item 29 and the nominated appointees to the Citizens Animal Shelter Needs Assessment Committee.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion?
Second motion.
Have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.